is here for you.
Hi, my dear Astro family. So today we are going to be looking at Chiron in Taurus. Well, Chiron is moving into the sign of Taurus in 2026. This is going to happen on June 19th. And it will be only in the sign of Taurus until September 17th. And then goes back into the sign of Aries. And then the final shift is going to be happening April 14th, 2027. And until 2034, May 5th, Chiron will remain in the sign of Taurus. So we are going to be exploring this on a personal as well as on a global level. But before we do that, I want to make a couple of announcements. I've got a course coming up, House Rulers in each houses. I think this is a fundamental course, but you will get hell loads of details on it. I'm going to talk to you about, let's say, the second house ruler in the seventh house. What does that mean? Personal experiences, psychological experiences, outer experiences, physical experiences. So I'm going to be breaking this down. Each lecture is going to be about 2 hours, and 1 week, potentially, we can be looking at three, maximum four house rulerships. So it's going to be a super detailed course. This is a base if you want to be a great astrologer or you want to be understanding yourself better or you want to be mastering your predictive skills. So I highly recommend checking it out. Now, if you would like to get a little bit more details on how Chiron, for example, affects you in 2026 and 27, then you might want to be having a personal reading with me, and you can do that on AstroViktor.com. Or secondly, you can get my yearly forecast for 2026. Each rising sign is approximately about 2.5 hours long, and I talk about Chiron in the sign of Taurus in that video as well as the aspects that Chiron will be making. Of course, Chiron will be connecting with Jupiter as well as Pluto next year. So there are some exciting times ahead of us, right? But let's get going with transiting Chiron in Taurus. I think this is one of the biggest shifts actually that is happening in 2026. Obviously, Chiron has been in the sign of Aries for a good 7, 8 years now. Actually, Chiron spends the longest amount of time in the sign of Aries. And the shortest amount is in the sign of Libra. That's actually less than 2 years. In Aries, it is about 8, 9 years long altogether. Um, and 66% of Chiron, 66% of its time, Chiron spends in the sign of Pisces, Aries, and Taurus. And the remaining 33% is only happening in the rest of the signs. But let's look at what Chiron actually represents. I mean, one of the major keywords that we usually associate Chiron with is the wounded healer. And great, I think it's a little bit too narrow-minded for Chiron, to be frank. Chiron is a lot more than that. But if you want to learn a little bit more about Chiron, actually, I have made 4 webinars on Chiron before, and I think they are in a bundle now, so you can get them as a bundle, like Chiron connected to house rulers in your chart, as well as Chiron psychological meaning, physical meanings, and so forth. So there is a lot available on my website connected to Chiron. But on one hand, this Chiron, like I said, it's the wounded healer. It is down to the mythology because he poisoned himself, he shot himself in the foot, and then he was in this eternal agony. But then he became a mentor, he became a teacher, which is another meaning to Chiron. But we are going to be exploring some of the other meanings of Chiron as well. But in the sign of Taurus, on a personal level, it is the wound of loss. You know, these transits often unearth a fear of losing what we value, Whether it's money, possessions, a job, or even a relationship. It can bring up some past experiences or like of instability, for example, prompting a reevaluation of our relationship with security and money. So therefore, this is all about having to feel more secure about who we are, as well as, of course, financial security. This is going to become a huge topic in the next 7 years. Taurus is associated with self-worth and values. So Chiron in Taurus challenges us to confront our sense of self-worth. We might find ourselves questioning what we truly value and whether our current life reflects those values. So this transit can expose a feeling that you aren't enough, or that your worth is tied to your material possessions or income. And therefore, it can make us really vulnerable as well as trust issues. I mean, Taurus values comfort and stability. And vulnerability can feel like the opposite of that. And because we don't have, let's say, the money or the resources or the talent, or at least thinking that, we become vulnerable. We potentially might become a target as well. So this transit might be forcing us to face our own fear of being vulnerable. Perhaps by bringing situations that require you to rely on, for example, others and the universe instead of a perceived sense of control. It can bring, of course, physical and bodily wounds as well. I mean, Taurus does rule over the body, so Chiron's transit here can bring up issues related to physical health, self-care, our own relationship with our own bodies. So maybe it's a physical ailment that we're gonna have to face, or we're gonna have to confront unhealthy habits. Chiron is super slow here, and Taurus is also pretty much of a has got a steady nature. So, this could be also a bit of a frustration here as well, where you feel like that you are getting stuck in a rut, or that your progress is not fast enough. So maybe we're gonna have to be able to learn to be patient as well. Chiron can bring positives in the sign of Taurus. For example, deep healing. By confronting your fears and insecurities around, security and self-worth, you might be able to release old wounds and build a stronger, more authentic foundation for your life. Like the building, the new foundation, like Taurus is a building sign. So it is creating you to, or it is encouraging you to create a sense of stability. And that might be coming from within rather than from external sources. Maybe you just need to trust your own resilience, your inner resources. Basically, you need to figure out what your talents are, and you're gonna have to be able to trust it. So, identifying your true gift, figuring out what your talents are, potentially a big theme for the next 7 years anyway. Negatively speaking, it can, of course, talk to us about insecurities, like anxiety or insecurity or financial problems. Maybe, if we are on a shaky ground financially, then it is kind of like a constant worry about what we might lose. But Taurus is a fixed sign, so there could be a lot of resistance to change as well. Maybe it's very difficult to embrace the changes Chiron is trying to bring into our lives, and we may cling to old habits or possessions or relationships that no longer serve us, and that can be prolonging the pain of this Chiron. And, for some of us, it can even feel like it's a breakdown. We can get super confused or emotionally isolating. It's kind of like tapping out emotionally, physically, spiritually. So there's a giving up type of element with that as well. However, the potential trap of this transit is that we are trying to fix the problem by acquiring more material things, seeking external validation. But this might be just amplifying or intensifying the feeling of lack rather than trying to heal the root cause of it. So I feel like this Chiron in Taurus is a call to align with our deeper nature and to find true security and self-worth from within. But of course, most of us are going to do that, in a material world. And that's great. There are further keywords to Chiron to consider. For example, the outcasted, the rejection. Now, this is rooted in his rejection by his own parents. He was not the greatest looking child ever. I mean, he's a half animal, half a human. So he had this sense of not belonging anywhere or being different. So therefore, he kind of felt like he was cast aside by society, the family, the group as well. Or Chiron represents animal welfare. Of course, it comes from the myth. He was a centaur, half man, half a horse. But also, it represents refugees as well. On one hand, he was a wanderer. Secondly, he was an outcast. He was raised by step parents, basically, who took kind of like a pity on him. Um, he has been pretty much displaced from his own home. So, he found a place to belong and then he learned a lot from his parents. But he does represent refugees. Also, Chiron represents healing and herbs as well. So, like I said, he was a master healer, a master of herbal medicine. So he turned his own pain into a source of wisdom and healing for others. Therefore, that's where the kind of like the wounded healer archetype comes from. But also, the myth kind of suggests that he wasn't accepted and potentially he wasn't able to accept himself either for a very long time. So, this is kind of like the feeling that no matter what I do, I am not truly accepted for who I am. And often this can stem from a specific event in our childhood, a family dynamic. Chiron is often also the representation of any type of motherly issues in our chart. So that's why the no acceptance comes from the mother as well. Chiron also represents wheelchair users as well, but also it can represent someone who has been given away to others to raise them. So therefore, the stepchildren type of archetype as well. Psychologically, Chiron represents a repetition compulsion in our chart, which is basically a trauma. It describes the unconscious drive to repeat painful and traumatic experiences in an attempt to master them or find a different, more positive outcome. So I'm going to give you an example. You keep choosing, for example, an alcohol addict as a partner of yours, and you don't know how to come out of it. So of course, when I try to connect this to the Taurus theme, there is a wound like picking the outcasted and the rejected archetype here. The wound manifests as feeling rejected or outcasted, let's say, based on your material circumstances or based on your body type. So you may have felt like you weren't accepted because you were either too poor or too rich. So it looks like this kind is going to be dividing people into like the rich and the poor category. And, it's kind of like a feeling of not having what others had or feeling judged for having more. And potentially we're going to see that as well. And like the wound of no acceptance, might be even tied to our appearance, to our body, to our physical capabilities. And maybe, it's the feeling of not being beautiful enough or strong enough, even Taurus. So it does bring up the topic of body image issues. So I feel like the sport industry, the personal training, or all these type of things are going to be getting bigger and bigger anyway. Or looking at the animal welfare, Taurus is an earth sign and it is connected to nature, the land, the animals. So maybe the suffering of animals or the abuse of animals gonna become quite a big topic coming up. But it could even talk to us about like a metaphorical meaning of it is that we are treated like animals. Like there is this saying as well, working like a donkey to be able to make money, to be able to make ends meet. So I think this might be becoming a big topic as well on a global level. But this might be a literal experience of seeing animal cruelty, and maybe there is gonna be kind of like a standing up against this. Maybe actually you feel like that you need to be working with animals, not just out of love, but out of a need to heal them. Or we will see that potentially there could be issues with animal food. Maybe it's a shortage of them, right? Or just the topic of how the animals are treated. Animal rescue, veganism, environmentalism could become a huge topic with Chiron in the sign of Taurus. I just heard recently that in Morocco they are going to be creating this huge shelter, and they are going to collect all the stray dogs, and someone is going to get hired just to look after them. It's going to be more of a kind of like not a shelter, but it's going to be kind of like a big land, which is going to be surrounded with fences and so forth, and then they can run around as much as they want and so on. Um, yeah, on one hand, this is a great idea, right? When we are looking at the topic of refugees, with Taurus, which is about stability and wanting to put down the roots in a way. So, on one hand, it's an experience of being displaced from my home or a deeply felt inner state of not having a secure place to call my own. So it's not just a geographical feeling, but a deep psychological one as well. Maybe you just kind of feel like that you are passing through life, unable to put down your roots. Maybe this is a fear of commitment to a home, a city, or even a job. And maybe there is a compulsion there to accumulate possessions. And maybe that's an unconscious attempt to build a sense of security, something that was lost or never established in our lives. I also believe that with Chiron in Taurus, healing and the herbs and the Taurus is the nature. So I feel like the healing methods are going to be very practical, grounded, and connected to nature. So maybe more and more people are going to be interested in herbology. I can imagine that that's going to be a huge topic. Or, like I said, the healing arts that involve the body, weight problems, and so on, massage therapy, physical therapies, horticulture, farming, all this type of stuff. I think they are going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. And, I mentioned that there is a mother issue as well connected. I mean, Taurus is ruled by Venus, and Venus is the planet of love, beauty, and nurturing. So I can imagine the wound here to be tied to a physical or material aspect of the mother-child relationships. So maybe it's a mother who was not physically present or nurturing, or a mother who was emotionally distant. So we're gonna have to be able to work those through. Um, like I said, when Chiron keywords are applied to Taurus, the wound surely is connected to the material and physical insecurities. So we need to build an unshakable inner security and self-worth to navigate this really nicely. Even Chiron represents diseases. It's kind of like the incurable wounds. And Taurus represents something persistent. So therefore, there is a chronic condition that can be affecting the neck, the throat, the thyroids, or even persistent issues with our metabolism or weight problem. And I think that we're gonna work on those a lot in the next 7, 8 years. Um, let's say if it happens in your sixth house, you might have experienced this deep, or you might be experiencing this deep sense of shame or self-hatred related to your body. So it's in the sixth house, or even it can be in your first house as well. So you might start exploring some alternative or holistic health practices to find relief for a condition that, has been resistant to conventional medicine. So there is a holistic approach to it as well, which on one hand, Taurus is not the most holistic sign of all, but it looks like Taurus will learn a little bit, mixing the holistic medicine with the practical ones. Chiron is a mentor, it's a teacher archetype as well. So potentially we might be seeing a lot of kind of like teachers, or maybe even schools. They're going to start teaching about financial management, maybe at an earlier stage as well, or financial literacy, or helping people heal their relationship with money, and therefore you're gonna have to do that as well, and potentially building wealth from a place of integrity as well. Also it could be how to cook, how to use herbs for healing, how to create a beautiful and secure home and family. These could be some of the mentoring topics that we might see. Even some astrologers consider Chiron being the bridge and Taurus is a builder. So this is a bridge building combination here. So it really feels like that we are bringing the physical and the metaphysical world together. So even this would indicate to me that when it comes to healing, the practical and the spiritual healing are going to get a step closer. One of the other things that I, would give as a keyword to Chiron is self-hatred. And I think due to social media and stuff like that, more and more people are uncomfortable with their body. We don't know our sense of value and self-worth. We maybe just keep saying, I'm not good enough to have what I want, or I'm not worthy of success, love, or comfort, or I'm not beautiful, and so forth. And that is leading to self-sabotage. So there is a lot of healing to be done there, and I think this should be the number one message here anyway. Start the work on that. Another thing that we tend to be doing with Chiron is denial. It's avoidance, like avoiding of confronting financial insecurities or physical health issues, which is the act of burying our head in the sand and pretending that everything is okay, even when it is not. Now, on a global level, what we might see is financial crisis and economic instabilities. Of course, Taurus rules finance, banking, the global economy, and Chiron is the wound of loss. So that's where the market crashes could be coming, or economic upheavals, insecurities. It could be a collective fear of losing our financial stability as well, though. And, there could be a lot of resource depletion, and even climate change can get worse as well. I mean, Taurus is an earth sign and it governs our relationship with natural resources such as food and the land. So we can see on a collective level that we are in denial. Oh no, we don't have any food issue. We don't have any land issue. We don't have any climate change going on. Or we can start hating ourselves uh, for the way we treat the planet. Or thirdly, we can actually get together and then trying to kind of cure this disease on Earth. So, but climate change, pollution, this destruction of ecosystems, I think this might be becoming even a huge topic. Even it can bring up the topic of waste management as well. Or I can imagine even on a global level that we might be valuing the wrong things. I mean, self-worth wound. So that's the personal experience. On a global level, Taurus represents the collective values. So, I mean, if we look around in our collective system, we all value material wealth and the consumerism, like the consumers, and then what type of marketing tactics we use, obviously, to prompt people to buy more and more. Right? So, of course, there is an element of a greediness here, but also there is this collective feelings of emptiness, like I have what I need, but at the same time, something is missing there. There can be something extra to it. And even, it's kind of like the global outcasts as well. So surely I can imagine on a global level that there's going to be a refugee crisis going on. Or, yeah, people who are losing their homes or lands or sense of security and hunger and famine. I think those are going to be big words. Hopefully, it's going to bring a lot of global healing, and that would be a positive manifestation of that. A holistic approach to economics and ecology, kind of like trying to bring people together to save the world, and so forth. Hopefully, we are going to be shifting from this purely profit-driven model to one that also values sustainability or ethical practices or the well-being of all people, human beings, and any type of beings, really. And hopefully, it's going to be the rise of green economy, movements that prioritize the health of the planets. Chiron is a mentoring archetype, and and the bridge. So hopefully these are some type of organizations that act as a bridge between the powerful and the powerless. And hopefully something is going to be happening like that. This should be an end of a denial period where we shouldn't be in a collective denial that we have got problems. Because all we see is that, the prices go up. But we don't see that, we might not have enough chicken anymore, or, that we have got shortage going on. And with Chiron in the sign of Taurus, potentially this might become quite visible. So this is a shorter video, of course, of Chiron in the sign of Taurus. I try to be as brief as possible. There's a lot more there's a lot more to talk about, of course, but let it be. Let it be enough right now, and then we're going to talk about this next year as well. So the next aspect I'm going to be talking a little bit more about in my next video is going to be the Chiron, Jupiter, and Pluto um, T-square, basically, because we're gonna see that in 2026 also. So remember, it is a kind of like a series of episodes that I'm creating about 2026. I've already done one on Jupiter in Leo, Jupiter and Saturn trine, Jupiter and Neptune trine. I've done one on Jupiter and Pluto square. So now we got to Chiron, but I wanted to discuss Chiron first before we go into Jupiter and Pluto Chiron T square. So I hope it helps, and I will see you in my next episode. Don't forget to subscribe, follow for more videos. You can take a lot away from these. And if you would like to have a reading with me, then go on AstroViktor.com and then you can choose the service that you would like to. And also, I've got a TikTok channel if you want to follow me there for daily updates. Take care. See you next time. Bye bye.
Every sign and every house, a journey starts, and we allow the universe so vast and true. Astro Viktor, it's here for you.